Lead developer experience at Lit, and today I'm going to go over a brief overview of claimable keys as well as a short demo that we have. So what are claimable keys? So claimable keys are keys that you can deterministically derive a public portion of a key pair before creating the key. And so some of the things that you might pass in to get a public portion of a key of programmable key pair actually is an auth identifier. So that auth identifier might be an email address, it might be SMS, it might be auth through, let's say, Discord or another account where you have someone's ID. And so you'll be able to do something like send a welcome bonus to a new user's email address before they sign up. And then when they sign up, they can claim the funds from that wallet that was produced for them once they verify their email. And with that verification step, they're able to authorize a connection with that private public key pair on the Lit network to that auth method. And so diving a little bit, you can find a lot of the content to read about claimable keys on Lit's developer docs. Make sure you're on the V3 version of the docs, since claimable keys is a new feature on the SDK V3. So you can find on the left-hand side under concepts, or just a general overview, and then for more of a view about how do you actually implement it, go into the SDK reference where there's a quick overview here, as well as how do you create and claim. And I also want to point out to go into the API docs where make sure you're on the V3 API docs where you can look through the different methods, where the main method that we'll be using here is a compute public key from auth method to be able to create a claimable key. And so the demo that I'm going to go over with y'all is on the Lit protocol repository, where you can go to claim key demo node.js and be able to set up your own claim key demo. This one is on the terminal only, so for a hackathon or for any other project that you might be building, we recommend that you also build your own front end for being able to take in a auth identifier, so that might be email, that might be SMS, and be able to also take in, depending on which auth you're using. Here we're using Stitch, be able to take in from the codes either passed in if you're doing a one-time password flow. So, okay, I'm going to jump into the code. So this project is relatively simple. I do want to point out that there's some necessary setups where we're calling in the Lit node client, node.js, and to make sure that you're importing the Lit node client, node.js 3.0.5 and above. That's our latest JS SDK, as well as setting up your Stitch project ID and Stitch secret. That'll be needed to go through this example and do the one-time password flow. And then finally, be sure to request a Lit Relay API key. Here we're using the Lit Relayer to help us produce a PKP, a programmable key pair. Okay, so going through this code here, we're creating a Stitch client, passing in the project ID and the Stitch secret. And then this next line here is we're actually taking in a response from the command line, so that would be the email. So we're waiting for an email to be inputted, and then from there we're going to pass that to Stitch. We're going to call the Stitch function, login or create with that email address, and then that actually will send us a code. So Stitch will send a one-time password code where that'll get prompted, and then we can authenticate with that and then be able to get a session through that. So then once we have the correct code, we have email, we're going to authenticate this user. So for us, for this example, that might be myself, where I'm doing this demo where I want to show you how to create a claimable key based on just my email, or like your email if you set that up. And then we get the session token here from that auth response session token we received above. And then that's all the setup we'll need on the Stitch side, where we're getting Stitch set up. On the lit node client side, be sure to instantiate and create a lit node client object. Because we're importing the lit node client node.js, you'll import the lit node client node.js object. In another context, you might just be importing the lit node client. And for this, we want to make sure that we have the lit network set as Cayenne, which is the only compatible network with lit.js V3, as well as for lit.js V3 and Cayenne, this is only supported network with SDK that has claimable keys possible. So then we connect lit node client. With this connection, we're making sure that we have a connection to the lit node. So we always have to wait for that to happen first before we actually use the lit node client. And then we call the auth client, where we create an auth client instance and pass in that lit relay API key. And then from there, we use the lit auth client. We pass in that we're using a Stitch OTP provider, as well as that user ID and app ID to create that session. And then from there, we're going to create an auth method type. So this auth method type is what we'll need to pass in to the lit nodes to compute the public key from the auth method. And so we see here on line 88, we're going to get the public key by calling session.computePublicKey from auth method, passing in that auth method we've created. And then I do want to point out that the lines 91 to 98 are kind of how we're going to show creating a claimable key, and then showing that based on creating that claimable key, that programmable key pair was made, and then associated with that auth ID, which would be that email address. So for my email address, I've created that claimable key. It'll pass back that public key of the programmable key pair, and then when I'm looking up all the programmable key pairs that are associated with that email, that PKP public key should be within that list. Okay, so this first method here, where it'll be with that claim flag, we're going to do yarn start claim. I'm going to enter in my lit email. Okay, I should have been sent a code. So I get my code, I pass that in. And then you can see here, a local public key has been computed. Okay, so great. We have that public key. And then we're going to do a lookup once this process has been completed. So we're going to do lookup. So now here with this lookup process, I need to auth in again so that they'll know that I have ownership over this, any accounts associated with this email. So then it's going to send me, Stitch is going to send me another one-time password code, pass that in, and then I've been doing a lot of testing all throughout the day, so you'll just be able to see all the different public keys that I've been creating throughout the day, and should also have this latest public key that we just made. And yeah, that is the demo. I hope you all have a smooth ride going through the examples, and be sure to reach out either on Discord or Twitter if you have any questions.